Craig, do you ever think to yourself, and I apologize if you think that this is, a question that's, out there, but do you ever think to yourself, these guys get paid so much money to be coordinators, and I have more common sense and I know more than them? You ever think that?
I think coaching lacks common sense at every single level at times.
You think you could do it? If you had started training as a 18-year-old to be a coach?
Oh, if I started dedicated myself to it?
Because you're Mr.
Yes.
Common Sense?
Well, wait a minute, though. See, I think that what Craig could do for a team, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up his very small rear end. I honestly mean this.
This bony old rear end.
Chris, I am not, this might stun both of you guys and our listeners.
Anytime you start off like the way you just did with that, I get extremely uneasy about what's coming next.
I can't wait to see where this is going.
Yeah. I really mean this.
Okay.
I think that if you had an offensive schemer, if you had Matt Canada or anybody who designed the plays and worked on the plays with the offense, because his actual football acumen
is way higher.
Yes.
He knows how to script people open.
But then if you had somebody separate from that who on game day in the moment picked the plays.
So you think Craig essentially could work well with Ben Roethlisberger?
I think here's why. I think video games and Madden have created an entire generation of people that, believe it or not, practice that more than coaches do.
Like actual game day calling.
Right, because if you think about it, Matt Canada does it for Pitt or for a college or for the Steelers. He does it 12 to 16 times a year. If you play video games, you're doing it 12 to 16 times a night.
I disagree with this, though. Here's why. To be an offensive coordinator and actually call plays on game day, you have to have a serious working knowledge of the other team's defense.
You don't do that in video game football if you're dedicated and super into it?
Yeah,
and competitive at it?
So you're saying we saw a robber blitz last play, so I'm going to
No, they tell you they have selected this package, because you see in real life those guys go on the field. So then my brain goes to, okay, they sent out the extra safety or the extra corner. I'm going to run the ball.
You've got a too high safety beater.
And I know what I'm going to do instead. Yes.
Yeah.
I knew my playbook when I played those games inside and out, and I knew with what they were showing me what would work, and I'm audibling at the line into other formations.
Well, Chris,
I want to stress something right now. Hold on. We're all on this show together. It is called the PM team, and Craig is very much a part of this show, even though it's not called the PMK team. Maybe we can work on that. I want to separate myself from this line of thought and this opinion that has been put out there very demonstratively and very clearly.
No, you should not. And
I want to create an Arizona, a Grand Canyon between me and this opinion.
I disagree with you on that.
You can't disagree with me wanting to be away from your opinion.
Yes, I can. I'm pulling you back in. You've been left no
See
choice.
Me? I'm like the guy in the mob movie. Every time I try to get out, I stay out.
No, you're pulled back in, and here's why.
Wrong.
Here's why.
Chaluch.
It's not a bridge too far.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
You're suggesting a guy that's playing Madden could call plays on game day.
Hold on a second. You don't think that there are guys who play Madden who would be better at game management than, say, Mike McCarthy or Mike Tomlin?
That's not calling plays. That's just knowing when to call a timeout.
But hold on a second. How is that any different?
It's being able to look at a clock and count.
Being a good Madden, being a competitive football video game player, a lot of it is calling the right plays in given situations. What do you think separates the top 1% of Madden players from the other 99% of people that do it
Lots of
casually?
Caffeine and a distinct lack of a social life.
Do we not?
And you don't think football coaches have both of those things, a lack of a social life and a caffeine addiction? Hello, have you met Dan Campbell?
Yeah, fair counterpoint here. You also are forgetting the one biggest part of all of this. Your game day play caller has to work with Ben Roethlisberger, who didn't respect Todd Haley because he didn't play football.
You're missing.
Barely respects Matt Canada. So a guy is going to say, "Wait a minute. Oh, your bona fides are calling plays in Madden. Yeah, I'm on board.
Okay, so
sign me up, coach."
You're using
great point. I've scrambled away from Von Miller before and shed off Bart Scott And Terrell Suggs, you, however, have hopped on the sticks against a 12-year-old MFing you, so I think we've both been through roughly the same level of stress.
Hold on a second. In that specific situation, Roethlisberger having no respect for somebody like Craig who's calling the plays, I would agree with you. Like in that very specific situation, I think you're right.
Okay.
But I don't think that's true
of every quarterback.
Yeah, and what makes let me give you this counterpoint. What makes what we're talking about any different from, say, what Ben Cherington does? What are Ben Cherington's actual baseball credentials? It has nothing to do with playing experience or being good at baseball. It's all about having a certain education and background and applying that to running a baseball team.
Listen, running NBA teams, baseball teams, football teams, and hockey teams. I guess meet you here, but I'm still going to make a very hard distinction. Is become the domain of Ivy League statistician types, right? Guys who've majored in statistics or learned probability models, right? Are we all in agreement? Math has become bigger than ever. That's why people get mad. They say the dorks and the nerds are ruining sports. Have either of you heard of one of those guys who probably would have been doing stockbroker work or maybe came over from that field, right?
Yeah.
Has any one of those guys actually inhabited a coaching role? The direct implementation of data analysis to the player so that the player can take that on the field and give it their all? No, and there's a reason. It's a separation of church and state.
Now, those lines have been blurred, Mulsey.
No,
they all laughed at Paul DePodesta, didn't they? Somebody has to break through that barrier. I saw Moneyball.
Paul DePodesta wasn't coaching.
Follow us on Twitter, Chris. No one's listening to your point at this juncture because the two of us disagree with you and we're jumping all over you, and our listeners are co-signing what we're saying. Okay. Follow us on Twitter at 93.7 The Fan, driven by Jim Shorkey Kia. Our listeners believe that Craig Riley could call better plays than Matt Canada. I don't disagree with them on that.
I'm sorry, I'm just busy tweeting that quote out.
Headline time.